Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. Are we seeing a time where food security is more important than a 401k or savings account? Well, come along, let's get into the conversation. So last Sunday night, Kelly were in our church service and my most favorite pastor in the world was preaching. And he was talking about warnings of putting our trust or our hope in something other than Jesus. He made this comment: a lot of us like to trust in our 401ks, our IRAs, our CDs, our savings accounts. And those were the examples he used as he was going on about this sense of security we have. And I got to thinking, that's not really the first thing that popped into my mind when it comes to sense of security. I was thinking about food stores. I don't really have a lot of trust in those intangible securities that are digitally recorded somewhere else should things go sideways or really hit the fan economically. But that got me thinking about our homesteads. How much focus are we putting on our food security? Now you're probably thinking, wait a minute, Troy, did you kind of miss the point of the sermon? No, I do want to give full disclosure. I have the blessed hope of Jesus Christ. So that's first and foremost. But I think he wants us to be prepared in case things get sideways. We can still take care of our families and serve others in need. So I did a little bit of research and I want to share some numbers with you to kind of prove my point. So since 2020, which of course we all know was our pandemic year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, at-home food prices have increased just over 20%, with half of that increase showing up in 2022 alone. So 10% of that inflationary increase happened just in 2022. Wholesale food prices increased by 22% in the same time period. And that wholesale price, that affects a lot of things, including our desire to eat out. Those prices, of course, bump up fast food prices or restaurant food prices. The All Food Consumer Price Index rose by 25% from 2019 to 2023. So that's a pretty substantial increase. So I don't think me pointing out that there's inflation and the cost of food is a little bit higher than it used to be is not going to shock a lot of you all. We all see that every time we go to the grocery store, or when we buy anything. So let's say you have a monthly grocery budget of $500. Well, using the Bureau of Labor Statistics information, then to buy the same amount of food that you bought 4 years ago with that $500, you would now have to spend $600 because of that 20% increase. And just imagine that across the board each month, and then all the other expenses that we have that inflation has hit. But the point I want to make is that we can actually insulate ourselves from inflationary concerns when we grow more of our own food, produce more of our own food on our homestead. So I want to take a second to give a shout out to this video's sponsor, and that's Jackery. They sent me this Jackery solar generator 1000 version 2. And that kit includes the Explorer 1000 as well as the Solar Saga panels. So I'm over here today at my brother's place where he's really into sailboats, and I think this Jackery kit is going to be the perfect configuration for his smaller sailboats where he needs ample power to run all the things that a sailboat needs, but also the portability to be able to take it on and off when he's either on shore or has the boat in storage. So let me show you how he's utilizing this. The Jackery 1000 version 2 offers 1500 watts of output, which is 50% greater than the previous version, and can handle surge output up to 3000 watts. This is ideal for Thad's boat setup. Years ago, I had the Jackery 1000, and this is a great improvement to that version. The compact size, lightweight design will be perfect for the tight quarters of the sailboat. Since he has multiple sailboats, he will be able to easily move this power system from one boat to another with very little effort, something he's not easily able to do with permanent mounted power systems. The foldable and flexible Solar Saga 200 watt panels will allow him to charge while on the water, and he can place them in various positions depending on the optimum sunlight angles. The panels are also waterproof, which is ideal for his sailing configuration. However, should he need to recharge while having access to shore power, the Jackery 1000 V2 offers a quick charge feature that can reach full charge in about an hour. Perfect for when he is tied off to refuel or grab a quick bite at the marina. So Jackery is launching this new product just in time for Black Friday. So be sure to check the link below in the video description for details about the specials and this new product. Now, Jackery is the leader in solar generator with over 10 years of experience in this industry, and that was the first solar generator that I ever purchased. All right, let's get back to work. So let's drill down to even more practical examples. So let's say a can of corn currently is $1.50. I looked it up. That's basically what it is right now. Using the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this can of corn 4 years ago should have only cost us $1.20. That 20% is shown up there. Now imagine if you were going to try to build a pantry, have a lot of corn, and you wanted to buy 100 cans. That's a $30 increase from just 4 years ago for that inventory. So if we look at 2022 alone, where we had that 10% increase, all the food that you already had in your stores was insulated from that 10% increase. In fact, your food increased in value, technically. Another element of inflation that's not as obvious is this idea of shrinkflation. I'm sure you all are familiar with that. This is where food manufacturers reduce the size of a product in order to keep the price the same. Here's a perfect example. You would think this can of organic corn, you would think this would be a 16-ounce can. It's actually a 15-ounce can. We're seeing that all across the board in food and consumables. Let me give you a list here. So some examples I found in research of shrinkflation. Burger King reduced the number of chicken nuggets in its $4.49 meal from 10 to 8. So you think, get an order of chicken nuggets for the kids? Hey, it's still the same price? Yep, you got shorted 2 nuggets. Royal Canin, a dog or cat food producer, I assume. Some cans of cat food now weigh 5.1 ounces down from 5.9 ounces. So they shaved 0.8 ounces off. Now here's one that'll get you. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. The 2-pack now only weighs 1.5 ounces. Quaker reduced the size of its Chewy bars from 0.92 ounces to 0.84 ounces. Even toilet paper, Charmin Ultra, the company cut 30 sheets from each of its mega rolls, making them somewhat less mega. Campbell's Homestyle Soup, cans that were 18.6 ounces are now 16.1 ounces. And even Huggies Baby Wipes, the old version had 768 wipes, but the new package has 704 wipes. And then Tillamook Ice Cream, the once standard half-gallon or 64-ounce container shrunk to 56 ounces and then to 48 ounces. So you look at it, you think, well, that's clearly a half-gallon of ice cream. I'm going to buy that. But it ends up being only 48 ounces instead of a true half-gallon. So I know this sounds silly, but when you compare shrinkflation to your own food stores, you realize your quart jars, they don't shrink in the cellar when everything else does. They stay the same size. So you're insulated from shrinkflation in your own food that you put away. So having your own food stores is clearly more economical and provides more economic security in a rough economy, an economy that we're in right now dealing with inflation. But many economists think that the dollar is going to continue to be devalued as our government spending and debt just keeps going out of control. So if the dollar continues to decrease in value, then consumables, of course, will just continue to increase in price, especially any imported item. But what if our current bad economy goes from bad to much, much worse? Well, wars and rumors of wars can really stifle an economy. Political unrest can cause economic collapse, and we know all too well that a global pandemic can shut everything down for a while. So a well-stocked food store will help you navigate the extreme declines that we could face in our economy and in commerce. Some key benefits of that food store, of course, would be access to food, specific food that you need when store shelves could end up being empty. Also, you could have a surplus that you can share with family and friends. And if things really go sideways, this could serve as a valuable currency compared to paper currency that would have zero value and could be utilized well in a barter system. So 401ks and savings and IRAs, all of those things that exist digitally in the world, those could all disappear overnight should we have an economic collapse. Even the ability to purchase things with paper currency, the US dollar, may go away at some point. Having an ample food store could be the currency you need moving forward and the supplies you need to obviously save the lives of you and your family. Okay, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, so let's turn this bleak conversation into a positive call to action. What should we do as homesteaders right now to prepare for a possibility like this? Well, I think there's 4 key steps. The first thing we need to do is an evaluation. Try to determine how much food you need to supply your family for 3 months. Start there. So calculate, if we only can eat what we have here on hand for 3 months, what would that need to be? So second, take an inventory of what you do have right at this moment and see how big that deficiency is. How broad is that gap? So in looking at those deficiencies, make sure you have items that are high in protein, have high calorie potential, and are shelf stable. I like to look at beans and rice. That's what I just grabbed one of the totes out of our food stores. So there's 24 pounds of beans right here. Third, evaluate your food preservation equipment and skills. There are a wide variety of options when it comes to food preservation. And I want to start with the most simple, those that have the least amount of tech involved with them, and then work our way up there. So the first is dehydration, something as simple as putting apple slices in an oven to dry out so they're more stable and you can put them in your cellar. Dehydrators are super inexpensive right now. You can find them used everywhere. But if you buy a dehydrator, make sure you have different ways of sealing your stuff up. So whether it's in jars, we do vacuum seals. Shorter term items, we just put it in Ziploc bags. Some other preservation options are pickling, fermenting, smoking, and curing. And I confess, we don't do a lot of pickling. We do a little bit of fermenting. And I do like to do smoking and curing outside. So with those preservation options, you just need to have a good supply of jars and containers that can handle the pickling liquid or the fermenting brine, all of those type of things. And you also need the skills. You need the knowledge to know how to do that. That way you don't poison yourself. Next is canning. Whether you choose water bath or pressure canning, it's a great way to put away a lot of food very inexpensively. So now's the time. Stock up on your jars and your lids. What I like to do is look at a monthly budget and say, okay, where's our inventory of jars and especially lids? In the pandemic, lids were so tough to come by. So just saying, okay, every so often, let's place an order of lids. Let's get our inventory built up. And the same with jars. If you go to estate sales, yard sales, flea markets, you'll find ball jars, canning jars all over the place. Just inspect them, make sure they're not cracked, make sure they've got a good lip on them, and you can get a great deal on jars. Well, kind of the top rung of food preservation when it comes to tech is freeze drying. The freeze dryers are really expensive, but man, they are really in vogue right now. And it's amazing what you can do with a freeze dryer. So if it's in your budget and you want to try that out, makes sense to acquire one. But just keep in mind, there's other supplies that go along with that, the little desiccant packets, all those type of things that keep moisture out of your freeze-dried material. And you may say, wait a minute, Troy, what about just regular freezing? Well, of course. Everybody has freezers. We have, I think, 5 chest freezers. And those work fine, but we don't want to necessarily rely solely on something like that because electricity is used quite a bit by those freezers. So the 4th step in preparation is make sure you have a place to store all this stuff. Ideally, you want a cool, dark location to put all of your canned goods, your vacuum sealed stuff, your dehydrated stuff. You want to be able to put that away out of sunlight, and it's something that's more temperature regulated, usually on the cooler side. Old school root cellar is probably one of the best options. Next best would be a basement area that you can cordon off to use for food storage. If you don't have something like that that's subterranean or partially subterranean, then maybe just pick a closet in a spare bedroom or convert a small office space into your pantry. Look at storage options even under staircases. If you've got small storage in there, go in and pack a lot of food underneath your staircase. Just be sure to avoid attic spaces. Attics get way too hot or way too cold and can ruin all your food in that situation. So if you're ready to get started, but you don't have a lot of produce, maybe it's like us right now, you're coming into the winter months, go to the store, look for things that are on sale, some produce closeouts, and practice with those things. That way, if you screw them up, you don't have a lot of money tied up in it. I think you can have a lot of fun trying old recipes and techniques that were super common just several generations ago. Something our grandparents did without even giving it a second thought. So I want to point out some common misconceptions or common mistakes I hear from people that say, well, if the economy turns really bad or things hit the fan and we have to go through several months of hard times, here's what I plan to do. And I just want to present those to plant that seed in your mind to make sure you don't fall into these categories. Well, here in Appalachia, I hear a lot of people just simply say, well, if things get really bad and the stores go out of food, I'll just take my rifle, hit the woods, and I'll go hunting. Well, that is an option. Hunting's always an option here in West Virginia. But keep in mind, everybody's going to have that same attitude. They're all going to go to the woods. Are they going to maintain the law and order associated with the Division of Natural Resources? No. Is that going to make game very scarce very fast? Absolutely. So don't just think if things get really bad, I'm going to be the only guy out in the woods trying to shoot my dinner. Another misconception is, well, I'll learn to garden or I'll learn to preserve when I need to. I've got my supplies, I've got my seeds saved in a bank, I've got my pressure canner in the attic, I got a bunch of jars. I'll do that when the time comes. Until then, I've got more important things to do. Well, take it from somebody who's been trying to garden for over 10 years. It's not super easy. So you need the skills. You need to know how to do things when it comes to gardening. You need to know all the nuances of planting a certain type of vegetable and how your soil responds and the insect pressure that you may have. It takes years and years to get the experience to really generate a lot of food out of your garden. And the same with preserving. If you don't have experience canning, vacuum sealing, doing some of these things, then it may not be as easy to do when you're under duress because the stores are out of food. Another thing I hear all the time is like, well, the internet's a wealth of resources. If things get crazy, I'm just going to go to the internet and that'll teach me how to do all this stuff. Well, keep in mind, there's a chance that the internet may not be accessible, or it could be restricted, or it could require electricity that maybe we don't have for a time period. So having these skills now, the knowledge of them, maybe even printing them out if you need more instructions, would be better off than relying on the internet when the time comes. Or the one thing I hear all the time, well, we've got freezers, just like us. We've got a whole bunch of freezers, we'll be fine. We've got them stocked full of food. Well, remember, if the economy gets really bad to where stores are empty, if that lasts for more than a couple weeks, that's most likely going to affect the energy grid as well. So you can see power going down. If the power goes down, I've got 5 freezers worth of food that I got to bring out and start canning, start preserving in other ways that are more shelf stable, that doesn't require electricity. Okay, this is a point I want to make, and this is very important. I am not trying to create a spirit of fear in you all. That is not what we're called to do. But I do believe we're called to be more responsible for our own personal needs. Reliance on modern technology and modern shipping to bring us our core staples isn't the most ideal situation to be in. And I want to encourage you, there's a lot of joy and entertainment in facing the challenge of learning something new, something especially involved with your food supply. And also being good stewards of all the blessings that we have that we're able to put away, we should be excited with the opportunity to help others in time of need. So whether it's neighbors or family that are going to come rely on you because you've been able to put that food store together. So I'm not saying throw away your 401k, empty your savings, don't do any of that stuff. Keep doing those type of things. But just as you keep an eye on your portfolio, keep an eye on your food store's portfolio as well. And here's where I inevitably land on this whole preparedness in case doom and gloom happens. I know if something happens tomorrow that takes out me and my family, I know we'll all be in the presence of Jesus enjoying His eternal provision. So if that happens and some of you all left behind, you're welcome to all of my stuff. Just watch out for the booby traps. All right, well, I hope you all found this helpful. I really appreciate everybody watching. I pray you have a great week. Take care.